the king. The trial lasted 3 weeks, and here is the execution live.
1.
And now the execution.
1.
And now the execution live.
Don't kill me. I've always been loyal to the king's enemies. I mean, the king.
Shut up, traitor.
Thank you, Christian, for that report. That was a nasty head wound.
Yeah, those things really do bleed. I hope we'll be alright, though.
He was a traitor. This just in from sources inside the castle. Attack on the king's prerogative. The Commons could now safely proceed to the redress of grievances. It had already passed the Triennial Act, which required that Parliament should be summoned at least once every 3 years, regardless of the king's wishes. The financial devices of his government were next attacked. The Commons voted poundage, but an act prohibited any future levy without Parliament's consent. Ship money was declared illegal, and the judgment against Hampton was reversed. Landowners could no longer be forced to purchase knighthoods. These acts deprived the king of the means of ruling without Parliament. Eric?
The King's Party. The King's recently formed party, vastly composed of nobles and other landowners, shall begin its first rally to defend their traditional position as the governing class tomorrow. The group, at first a very small one, has grown to considerable proportions, but is still dwarfed by the parliamentary party. Though most of the king's support comes from the rich nobles of the countryside, a few of the cheating merchants of the towns have joined them, but for the most parts, only towns such as York, where the King Charles has made his new headquarters, Worcester, and Oxford has remained loyal to King Charles. Many of the gentry has also joined the monarchy, and Sir Edmund Verney, I think, was speaking for a great many of the gentlemen when he said, "I have eaten the king's bread and served him for nearly 30 years, and I will not do such a base thing as forsake him." All of the hard-working common people, the apprentices, tradesmen, and farmers, have sided with the parliamentary party and are opposing the king's party, in hope the revolt will bring about such changes as great as the parliament gaining power instead of the king. The king's party sorely wishes this not to happen, or they would probably lose their positions as nobles and landowners.
1.
And now back to Christian. He's returned to our studios from Lord Stratford's execution, and a grisly execution it was.
The coming of the Civil War. Last week, King Charles left London and set up his headquarters at York. He was joined by Edward Hyde. At first, he tried to arrest the 5 members which shocked the nation. He was issued several proclamations in which he claimed that he was the rightful ruler. That Parliament was breaking the law, though. Last week, the Parliament presented the king with an ultimatum known as the 19 Propositions. King Charles called it a mockery and a scorn. The king has claimed that the Parliament is trying to seize power and how the people are split in two. Many people have sided with the king out of a sense of duty, but mostly have joined the parliamentary party, and some have remained neutral. And now back to Rachel with an interview with a peasant.
Excuse me, are you a peasant?
What do I look like, a European swallow?
Do you mind if I ask you a couple questions?
No.
Okay, did you fight in the war?
Yes, of course.
How do you feel about fighting next to knights and men of other classes?
Well, we are equal on the battlefield.
And do you feel you won the battle?
Well, I didn't get my head chopped off, did I?
Okay, thank you for talking to me.
1.
Thank you, Rachel, for that interview with the peasant. Okay, now to the campaign of 1642. The war hasn't gone much to the king's favor because of his lack of money. Since he had to end the struggle quickly or lose all of his money, he decided to dash to London and maybe still win the war. Fortunately, Essex's army barred his way. The battle ended up at almost a draw, but Essex left the royalists in possession of the field and retreated towards London. Our king followed, but as he pursued the enemy further, his money supply dwindled and it was more difficult than ever to keep his army on the field. However, King Charles, because he knew that London, the largest city opposing him, was the key to victory, and planned a 3-way attack on it. However, his plan failed and he decided to attempt to take Gloucester instead. Essex led the trading bands across the country to relieve the town, and King Charles was defeated again. Christian?
Fundamental issues. The Civil War has been called a struggle between the king and his parliament. Some 255 people helped the king fight, while some 60 more MPs assisted him in other ways. It was really a conflict between two parties and the ruling class.
1.
And now, a close-up about the parliamentary army from Rachel.
1.
Thank you, Christian. And now it's the parliamentary army.
Yeah.
Although Parliament could afford a larger army, and its infantry was superior in number to the king's, it was weak in cavalry. Furthermore, its commanders were half-hearted nobles. The Earl of Manchester quoted, "If we beat the king 99 times, yet he is still king. But if the king beat us once, we shall all be hanged." The Earl of Essex was of the same opinion. They did not want to inflict a complete defeat on the king, but hoped to reach a satisfactory compromise with him. And now to Eric for an interview with Oliver Cromwell.
Now that the Battle of Marston Moor is ended, CERT has time for a brief interview with the infamous Oliver Cromwell, a wonderful cavalry leader, and perhaps he has created the best group of cavalrymen ever. Here he comes now. Sir Cromwell, are you ready for our interview?
Yes, indeed.
Our first question is, to what do you credit your victory at Marston Moor to?
God. God made our enemy as double as our swords.
I see. Being the religious man that you are, what do you think of the moral standards of your cavalry?
My men are severely punished for drinking and swearing, but are free to hold and express a variety of religious opinions.
Okay, one more question from CERT. Many have seen your cavalry and scoffed at your plain, russet-coated soldiers. What's your response to this?
I had rather have a rusted-coated captain that knows what he fights for and loves what he knows, than what you call a gentleman and is nothing else.
That's our final question, and thank you for cooperating with CERT, the finest newscasting team in England. And thank you for tuning in for Christian, Eric, and Rachel Television, the finest newscasting system.
That was a very good interview with the peasant.
Thank you, but he smelled bad.
That's a really lousy accent also.
Yeah, I could do better than that, and I'm not even English. Better than that, and I'm not even English.
Me too. That's what he said.
What?
The recording.